what's up guys? I'm here to talk about fantasy and also to review a book I just finished called Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. And I love this cover. This cover is so beautiful, even though it does stain easily. But first, I want to talk about my feelings about fantasy and just do a little chit chat about the genre because I don't think I read a single fantasy book in 2020. And this is my first fantasy book of 2021. And one of my resolutions for 2021, my bookish resolutions, one of them was to read more fantasy because I feel like I read a lot of contemporary fiction. You know, I'm a contemporary fiction girl through and through. I just don't read a lot of speculative fiction. And it's really weird because if I look at my reading history when I was younger, speculative fiction was really what got me into reading. And I always say this, but if you want to know who really loves reading, who really loves reading, like enjoys it, look at fantasy readers. They really appreciate the art of storytelling because I think with contemporary fiction, sometimes, even when it's fiction, it really is just a documentation of human life, which is awesome. But if you want to see what books can look like when you take risks with the plot line, fantasy, speculative fiction, that's the way to go. So why did I fall off fantasy? Well, yeah, when I was younger, I really loved fantasy. I loved dystopian novels. I just loved, like, anything where the world was ending, like apocalyptic stuff, monster stuff, I loved. The Cinder series, the Gone series, the Fallen series, the Matched series, Twilight, obviously Harry Potter. I was just so into those books when I was younger, and I had more patience when I was younger for multiple books in a series. These days, I feel like if a book is more than like one, if it's not standalone, I don't know, my patience, it's been really bad, but I'm starting to get over that. But it was a thing that kind of pushed me away from fantasy because there's usually a trilogy, you know, that comes with fantasy. So multiple reasons, right? I got less patient with trilogies and the world building. I kind of just wanted to hear a quick story. But also I felt like fantasy wasn't doing what it could be doing, and I feel this way about sci-fi, actually, especially sci-fi. I felt like fantasy and sci-fi, they weren't doing what they could be doing. The thing is, those genres are so expansive, and so when you still see whiteness prioritized or heterosexuality prioritized, you're kind of like, what's the effing point of being expansive if you're just going to replicate what we already have on Earth? Most of the time, there's not even any black people. So it's just like, really, you're gonna do all this magic, but you can't even add like a black person. I mean, I feel like Harry Potter has gotten dragged finally for this, but it's like all this damn magic and you can't even add a couple black people. That's suspect. So now I'm starting to see fantasy is really doing that, and the fantasy books that people that I follow on Bookstagram are sharing are really exciting. People are talking about Legendborn and Wings of Ebony and The Gilded Ones and Ray Bear, just to name a few, and Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. And I'm starting to see fantasy and speculative fiction and in general just be really more like powerful, like literally just more powerful. So I'm trying to get back into fantasy, you know, with all the black writers who are now doing fantasy and thriller and sci-fi and other speculative fiction. I just really wanted to make that a goal of mine in 2021. So I'm on Bookstagram. I'm trying to see, you know, what fantasy books, what speculative fiction books should I get into. And people were saying Black Sun because this is also written by an indigenous author. So I just really wanted to read this because of that as well. So now I want to talk about Black Sun and do a quick review. Did I like this book? Yes. Did I love this book? Yes. Did I give it 5 stars on Goodreads? Yes, I did, because it was that fucking good. Again, I'm not a fantasy girl, so if I tell you this is good, this really is good. The world building wasn't too much. It was easy to follow. Even though there are a lot of characters, I felt like Rebecca did a good job of fleshing out the characters and making their personalities distinct. Because this is the thing, I don't like reading books where there's a whole cast of characters but they're blending. You know, you can't tell one person from another. And I felt like this book had a full cast, but they were very distinct. You just knew that each character had different motivations, different expectations, different feelings. It was just very clear and very palpable. I really liked this book because of it. So what is this book about? There's many ways you can start. There's many places you can start in this book because this book does jump from time to time and place to place. But I'm just going to start in the city of Tova. And Tova is like this holy city and kind of the more powerful city and Tova is run by a priesthood. There are 4 clans. There's Carrion Crow, there's Winged Serpent, there's Water Strider, and there's Golden Eagle. And under the treaty of, I don't know if it's Hokia or something, they all decided to bond, not fight, become, like, I guess one nation or one city under Tova's priesthood. The priesthood is ran by 4 people. The most powerful member of the priesthood is the Sun Priest, and that is Naranpa in this book. Then you have the Priest of Knives, who basically runs security, war, violence, and squashes like uprisings if it has to, and that is run by Iktan, who is a third gender, so they use Zir pronouns. And I say third gender because literally one of the characters refers to it as third gender. But yes, and then there's Abba, and Abba is the priest of basically the healing society, so think medicine, wellness. And then there's Hassan, or Hyson, who's the priest of records, think knowledge, record keeping, history keeping, archiving. So they are the 4, right? And Naranpa is supposed to be the most powerful one because she's the Sun Priest, and the Sun Priest keeps her position for a lifetime. But Naranpa is radical. First of all, she was never from the city of Tova, the proper city of Tova. She's from an underground kind of region of Tova called the Ma, which is, they're referred to like derogatorily as like dry earthers, but they live like underground. And so she was never supposed to come up. She was never even supposed to be out of the Ma. Usually people who are born in the Ma stay in the Ma, and so her rise to success is very powerful, but also people are envious, you know? And so she's very radical. Basically, she's upset with the priesthood because the priesthood has lost power over time. They're basically symbolic figureheads that read the stars from time to time and collect taxes. And Naranpa does not want that to be the case. She wants the priesthood to actually mean something to the people, and she wants the priesthood to gain their power. Okay, now of the clans, the most important clan to focus on is Carrion Crow, because the priesthood did something really kind of effed up to Carrion Crow, and that is when Carrion Crow was going through an uprising of sorts, the priesthood launched a very disproportionate attack on Carrion Crow and basically killed off generations of human beings. That clan, Carrion Crow, they're very like disgruntled, and they probably dislike the priesthood the most. Within the Carrion Crow clan, there are people who are cultists. Now, cultists are people who think there's a crow god who is going to come back and destroy the priesthood. Then within the clan, there are people who are like, you know, I don't really think that's true. I don't like the priesthood, but I don't think there's a crow god, so I'm just gonna kind of go with it, whatever. Let's just pay our taxes and live pretty well off anyway. The cultists believe that there's a crow god going to avenge the Night of Knives, which is basically when the priesthood launched that very disproportionate attack. But no one really believes them because it's like, where's the evidence? And they're kind of weird. They're kind of a weird sect, right? But they're actually right. So move region and time into the Obregi Mountains, where a boy is born to a Carrion Crow mother who escaped and an Obregi father. And his name is Serapio. And Serapio is basically who will become the crow god. His mother, when he turns, I think, 12, performs a series of rituals during the eclipse and makes him watch the eclipse, draws like a crow on his back, a scarring design on his back of a crow, and basically somehow finds a way to reincarnate the crow god into her son, Serapio. So Serapio is the new crow god, and the prophecy is that he has to go back to Tova and basically wipe out the priesthood and definitely kill off the Sun Priest. It's hard to tell who is good and who is bad, right? On one hand, Naranpa of the Sun Priest, she's a really good person. She isn't who the Sun Priest used to be. She wants to reach out to the clan. She wants to be good to them. She wants there to be peace in Tova. So she's not bad. However, you can't deny that the priesthood did something really bad when they launched that attack on Carrion Crow. Then with Carrion Crow, it's like, you know, they want to avenge that event, but at the same time, it's like, at what means are you going to do that? You know what I'm saying? So there's a good versus bad, but it's also hard to tell who's good and who's bad. What I loved about this book, so many things. First of all, the normalization of gender queer pronouns, Zir. So Iktan, the priest of the knives basically for the priesthood and Tova uses their pronouns, and it's just really like refreshing because it's just like I don't see those pronouns being used, and there are also people who use they them, and it's just like normalizing. And I hate saying normalizing or forward thinking, but you know, it is forward thinking because people are still not on that. But I just loved it. Anyway, so I really appreciated that about this book. There's a lot of matriarchy, women ruling. I don't know, there's just so many like basically flips the society as we know it on its head, and I felt like that's what I want to see from fantasy, you know, like take some risks with social norms, don't just repeat what we have in a fantasy setting, and I really appreciated that about this book. I cannot wait for the next book in this series, and this is the Between Earth and Sky trilogy, so there will be at least 2 more books, and I just thought this was so well done. This book was so good, and I felt like it left enough so that you want to see what happens in the next 2 books, but also like tied things up enough that you feel like, okay, this book was fulfilling. Read my review though on Instagram because I feel like it explains things much more clearly. But yeah, this book was so good, and I can't wait to just really take fantasy more seriously. Like fantasy, you fell off for me, you really did, but this I feel like brought me back in. So if you're someone who's not really big into fantasy, give this book a shot, just try it. But I cannot wait to come back and review more fantasy for you guys, and thank you for watching. Bye.